Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I have Meredith Monday Schwartz on. So excited to have her on. A very unique background. So I'm excited to have you all meet her. Welcome, Meredith.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So tell everybody, where are you right now in your leadership journey?
Sure, absolutely. So I actually have a little bit of a different story in that I find that a lot of people are surprised when they find out that I've been with my company, which is called Here Comes the Guide. I just celebrated my 25th work anniversary at Here Comes the Guide. So my entire adult life, I started when I was 24 years old, and there were just 3 of us, and we've now grown there are now 42 of us, 42 women strong. So we have a website that helps people to find the wedding venue that exactly right suits their wedding. So it's called a wedding resource website. We concentrate on venues, and we actually invented the local wedding market before the internet existed. Back when we actually did a book about the best places to get married. We started in California. And that's where I joined the company in 1997. And again, we were just 3 of us. And it's this wonderful, I love the story of Here Comes the Guide because it's all about organic growth, and also everything is figure outable. So over and over and over again in our growth story is the fact that we knew where we wanted to go, but we didn't know exactly how we wanted to get there. And we just figured it out together as a team, as a sisterhood, and we grew over time. In 2008, I began to take over daily operations of Here Comes the Guide. I was the salesperson for the first 10 years. And then I took over daily operations and then did that, and then became CEO when we bought out our founder in 2016. And at that point, we became a fully distributed company. So we don't have an office. Everyone works from home. We have employees all over the domestic United States. Like I said, all women, and we have the best time together creating the company that we really want to see more of in the world. And that piece is my very favorite piece of what we do at Here Comes the Guide, because we love our work, we love our venue clients, we love our brides and grooms that we help out. But what we really love is creating a company that's a great place for women to be the best version of themselves at work, and also have a lot of space to have a life outside of work, which I think is the most holistic way for us to be happy.
That word space is something I'm hearing a lot today. So I feel like I need to go like meditate on her or something, because it's a lot. That word space is so important.
It is.
What does that exactly mean? So I love that. So I'm curious, you've been there for a long time. So boy, you're someone who's super loyal. I guess the question would be like, what made you stay in this place as long as you've been there? That's one question I have for you.
Yeah, I would say there are 2 really big reasons. The first one is a personal reason, which is that it's always been a really great place. I have 4 kids, including 3 older kids, and then we had a caboose baby. And so it's always been a great place for me to be able to have a career that fed that part of me, and also enabled me to be the kind of mom that I wanted to be. I wanted to create a place, I wanted to work at a place, and then create a place where when I had my daughter when I was 21, and I was working at a big law firm as a paralegal, and I couldn't if she was sick and I had to not be there, it was a really, really big deal. There was a lot of pressure. There were a lot of negative feelings about taking time off to be with your sick baby. I wanted to work at a place where when life happened, when I needed to put my being a mom first, that everyone around me was going to not only be okay with that, they were going to support me in that. And so that's one of the reasons, was that it's always enabled me to have a good balance. I love working from home. That's something that's always been really important to me. I think that works really, really well. And so then that leads into the other big reason, which is that I've always been able at Here Comes the Guide to form and shape it to be the kind of company that I wanted it to be, which included creating this space in the work world and then outside of the work world for women to be the best version of themselves. And so there are a lot of different ways that we do that, but being willing to accept the whole individual is something that's really important to me. And that's always been something I could do at Here Comes the Guide. building that out with my team and being able to hire and work with people who I absolutely love and admire, those things are all really good reasons to stay.
I love that. One of the my not the book I just did, but in 2021, I put a book out called The Art of Caring Leadership, and one of the arms that are legs of that is whole person leadership. And so that
Yes.
idea of taking the whole person in, and I love your focus on both in and out to look and work, and having that balance at life, or maybe not even balance, but I always call it like integration. I have 4 children too, so I feel like everything's about integration, and it's, I don't know, balance. It for me is if it's even like a possible thing, but integration absolutely is, and it makes it just much easier and less stressful to not think of it the other way.
Right.
But I think that's a great focus to have for your organization for sure.
Right. We want to be able to be a really, really nurturing environment for people to be able to be their best selves outside of work. And also, we really want to create the company within the work that has people sitting in the right. I always talk about butts being in the right seats. I want to be sure as we take on new employees, it's really important. One of the things you talk about in your latest book, Active Listening, is that a lot of what you can do with active listening is to hear the whole person, to hear not just what's going on in their work life, but what's going on in their home life, because all of that comes to play when we do our work, right? And so really getting to know the people that I work with enables me to help them be a whole person, but also to make sure that we're using their superpowers in the best way possible in the work that they're doing. Because then that's when all of us feel more fulfilled, when we're bringing that to the table. So that's another thing that we really concentrate on, is in the actual work, we have found that we can be more productive, more profitable when people are given the space to do the work and to live the lives that they want to live, but also to do the work that feels really organic and natural to them.
Mm. I'm wondering too, if this is just like a side thing that came to my mind, but being in an organization full of a lot of women, we already, not every woman, but a lot of us, because just how we're built, feel a lot like we have feelings. And so I'm curious to know, you know, if that's just like a fluid part of the organization where people are able to just like the whole safe spaces thing, people can just like talk about things. Do you feel like you're really open? Are there times parsed out or kind of cordoned off for that type of thing? Do you just do it all the time? I'm just because and the fact that it's distributed. Do you have like forums for that where people are just able to just kind of share, talk,
Right.
things like that?
Right. You're absolutely right. We are fully distributed. So we've spent a lot of time really crafting ways for us to get together in large groups. So once a year, we all get together. We do it here. I live in Austin, Texas. We do it here in Austin. All of us come together and we spend 4 days just hanging out with each other. And we do some guided hanging out, and we do, organic free flowing hanging out. So we definitely do that once a year. But during the actual work week, we break into different kinds of small groups that meet really regularly. And we meet we create space for, this is just to talk, like literally, what's your favorite show you're watching? What's the big struggle that you're having? What products are you using that you love? And it's just literally friends getting together to talk, but creating space for that to be okay. We've found that really deepens relationships. Now, the other place that big feelings can come into play, and a question that I get all the time when people find out that I run a company of 42 women, is how do you deal with big feelings that can come up in any group, but especially in a group of women? How do you kind of manage that piece of it? And the first thing I would say about that is that we hire for the trait of wanting to be a part of the large group. We hire girls. We hire girls who are fed by deep relationships with smart, wise women, right? So that's something we hire for. And then the other thing is that as soon as we hire them, I tell them there are only a couple of ways to get fired from Here Comes the Guide. Because we have a really, really high retention rate. Most of the people who've been with us have been with us for a very, very long time. It's really hard to get fired from Here Comes the Guide, except if you cause drama. So we make it really clear from the beginning, and we give a lot of examples about what does causing drama look like. So we get real specific, right? And we talk about the kind of culture that we're creating, and that the absolute slippery slope that I am there to uphold is that we don't let ourselves slip into backbiting, clickiness, any of those things. So when big feelings come up, to your point, we have a really specific way that we expect every team member to deal with those big feelings. And that first and foremost means you go to the person, you don't talk to anyone else. You go to the person that you have big feelings with for whatever reason, and you two actively listen to each other, knowing that we automatically have agreed to believe in the other person's best intentions. And so that we sort of force that conversation about whatever happened, because a lot of what can happen if you don't do that is there's a lot of talking around it, right? And so, and it's all of that that creates the kind of toxic work environment. So we just really nip that in the bud. If they have any sort of trouble, most of the time, 99% of the time, two smart, caring women getting together, believing in each other's best intention, and being honest with how they felt, that's going to deal with the issue. And they come away with it actually feeling closer than they did before. There are times where that doesn't work. And then at that point, I get involved, our COO gets involved, and we work it out together. Again, really just talking really honestly and openly. When we believe in radical authenticity, it's one of our core values, is being authentic and vulnerable. And we have just found that we are able to work through a lot of those if we give some space to it, to the good stuff, and we create a framework around dealing with the bad stuff. We've been really, really successful in having a group of happy women working together.
So when I say leadership at heart or caring leader, what comes to mind for you? How would you describe that? What pops into your head?
I think what pops into my head is, as a CEO, my job is twofold. And I think this is how I look at, this is how I would answer that question. Obviously, caring for the health of the bottom line of the company. We have to make money, we have to make profit. All of those things have to be a priority for me. But equal to that is the priority and the really strong necessity that I feel to be the best CEO that I can be for all of the people who work for me, and to care about them as whole people. And so I'm holding those two priorities in balance. There are times where they can be in conflict. Those two priorities can be in conflict with each other. Those are the times that really keep me up at night. Those are the times that are the biggest struggle, is when the needs of the company are at odds with the needs of, let's say, one individual staffer. Those are my hardest, darkest times to figure out how to do it, because those are my two, that's what I think about. I think about caring about the company, but caring equally about the people who work there.
Where do you go when you're at a crossroads in that type of situation? Like, do you have a coach? What do you do?
Right. I have a fantastic CEO coach, and that's been one of the best things. So when we bought out our founder in 2016, one of the things that I immediately insisted upon, because I had never been a CEO before, was that I really wanted to invest in having a CEO coach. And I've worked with the same CEO coach, his name is Bill Rutledge, for 7 years. And he's really helpful in being a sounding board for those really, really hard places. But I will tell you, in addition to that, one of the absolute best things that has ever happened to me is that in 2012, I hired a salesperson, and she ended up becoming not only my COO, but also my best friend. And so we actually live 3 doors down from each other here in Austin, and we are truly partners in running Here Comes the Guide. And so when she runs against something that is really confounding her, or when I do, that partnership, that ability to really lean on each other from a business perspective, from a personal perspective, has made a big difference for me because I can be my whole person with her. I don't just have to be the confident CEO. I can also be Meredith, who maybe feels like I don't know what to do next. And she's okay with me being able to be both of those people simultaneously. That's been a big help.
That was huge. Now, was she with you right when you moved over to the CEO role as the CEO, or did that just happen recently?
That happened more organically. So I was the CEO and she was leading our expansion. We started out in California. She led our business expansion as we became a national company. And so then she went from being our business development manager to being CEO or COO.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, that's great. Okay. So I'm curious, can you think of a time for, share that you can share with the listeners when maybe the whole caring leadership with heart, like caring for the individual, maybe it wasn't, you just weren't so great at that. Like you didn't show up in that way. It could be one specific scenario. It could be something from 20 years ago. It could be something from last week that you would share. I want you to walk us through that. And then also tell us, like, what did you do to come out of it? What did you do to come out more enlightened as a result of it?
Yeah. So this actually happened just within the last 2 years. So I mentioned at the top that for the first 10 years at Here Comes the Guide, which was from 1997 to 2007, I was a salesperson for Here Comes the Guide. So I had 10 years of experience being relationship building relationships with all of my venue clients. Those are the people, the venues, the wedding venues pay us money. That's how we make our money. And so I had 10 years of that. I really enjoyed the job. I was pretty good at it. And so I really have always felt like, okay, that's an element of the business I feel really strong, really confident in. So about 18 months ago, we were working on a new framework, a more detailed framework around our key performance indicators for our salespeople. And I was really pushing for one of those key performance indicators to be around the number of touches that they make per day to their clients. And I was setting it at numbers that when I was a salesperson from 1997 to 2007 were very doable. So I felt like, okay, but I was getting pushback. I was getting pushback from some of my most seasoned salespeople, which is really out of the ordinary. And I was not actively listening. I was so sure that I was right, and that I couldn't understand why they didn't see that I was right, that I stopped listening to what they were saying. And then my good old ego started to peak up and started to get in the way too. That was saying, well, you're saying that this is what needs to happen. Why are they sort of like, why would they second guess you? I mean, of course, this is ridiculous, right? But that's what happened. And at one point, I just got really frustrated and I had this aha moment. I actually, in the middle of the day, went and took a bath, which is something that when I'm really consternated, sometimes this is the benefit of working from home, because almost every time that happens, I get some clarity. So I'm taking one of my desperation baths, which is what I call them. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm really upset. And all of a sudden I'm like, why are you not thinking about the fact that if they are saying that number is not a doable number, why are you not asking what is a doable number? And why are you not finding out what the reason is? Why are you so wrapped up in you need to be right that you're not? So I get out of the bath, I get on the phone with my 3 top salespeople and have this conversation and start really listening and asking them, but if I could do this number, why, what, and so they start really talking to me about the realities on the ground of doing sales in 2021, which, by the way, are very different from 2007. This is obvious to everyone but me at this point. And I just was able to open up my mind and say, not only I'm sorry, I've done this wrong, but I feel really bad that I wasn't listening or asking the right questions. And I was so focused on myself and my ego and my idea of what perfection looked like. I'm an Enneagram type 1. Perfection is a really big thing for me, a big struggle for me. And so luckily, again, smart, wise women who are full of grace were willing to say, you know what, we knew that you were going to that you were going to come around. You were going to get it eventually, Meredith. And so I was really able to see, and then we were able to set some KPIs that made sense in the current environment and that made sense to them and incentivize them instead of feeling frustrated with KPIs that there's no way that they could meet. So we ended up with a system that works really, really well. And I hope that what we also ended up is them remembering that when I'm wrong, I would like to think that I'm willing to really own being wrong.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one and a good one, because if we want our people to to speak up when something doesn't seem right, or speak up when they pretty much know what's right, and without it, like fear of that whole psychological safety thing, then we as a leader have to be super comfortable with doing that admission, right? And then, and also I love that, you went back to the drawing board. So you did the thing you do, which is like that recentering thing you do with the bath, right? Everybody has to have a way to recenter their mindset. You went there, you recentered, you came back with clarity. You then said, okay, my one tool is to lean in with curiosity, which is critical as we are trying to gather like what is going on in the person's mind, because we are like, they look like they're aliens to us often. Like, wait,
Right.
what? I totally don't, which is what conflict's about. Conflict really is about just not seeing or getting the other person and what it is what's happening with them. And we just are so like, it's like foreign to us, like, wait,
Right.
what?
Right.
And so in this case, you just said, okay, I'm gonna lean into curiosity to get to their truth. And as you did that, like the curtain opened and the seas parted. And you're like, now I get it. I can see now what's happening. And I love the fact that you said, well, what is doable? And that's, I mean, it's curiosity, but it's also like, it's letting them like lead the way on what this new way of selling this service is. And given the fact that, and you were showing respect to them for the knowledge they had acquired by being up front, by being in the field, like for them being in the trenches. It took a lot. That took a lot for you to do that. But I love the recentering you did before.
Right, exactly. A desperation bath is always really useful. And also afterwards, one of the things when I realized, which certainly happens not infrequently, I realized that I've done something not right or not as well as it should have been done. It's the after part for me of being able to kind of say, okay, you didn't do it great the first time, you figured it out, you fixed it, let's move forward, and not being hung up on that. But why did I get it wrong? No. My brain loves to get stuck there.
Yeah, that's like giving us ourselves grace, right, in the moment.
And if I am wanting to model to my staff, because I work with a bunch of type A women, that they need to learn to give themselves grace, I need to model being able to do it for myself too. And that is definitely a struggle that I've had.
Yeah, I'm the same way, by the way. I do that whole kicking thing, and I almost like I have to go through the process. Like I talk about when we reframing a lot, reframing circumstances, and so it's like, well, because we're human, we all reframe like automatically. It's like being intentional, and sometimes that means like we're human, so we have to be like in a pity party sometimes with ourselves. We have to wallow a bit before we say, okay, I'm sick of myself.
Exactly.
Right. I distract myself. I'm sick of myself and it's time to move on. And now I need to see things differently, or else I'm not going to get unstuck. I'm going to be in this place forever,
Right. I can't tell you how I love a good pity party. And the end of it is always, I am so sick of myself. I just want to be out of my own head. Totally.
Oh, I love the recentering. So just for those who are listening, think about whatever recentering exercise would be for you. It could be a walk, it could be the bath, it could be, I don't know, whatever it is, but that recentering exercise, I think is very good, because now it's time to move forward. Now it's time to like look. And I love the other thing, the secondary thing is, in most all cases, if we are assuming positive intent on one person's side and we are leaning in with curiosity, we're going to put ourselves back into the prefrontal cortex, which allows us to be a little more rational in the moment, not so emotional.
Right.
So it actually like intentionally moves what you're doing and you're handling it up front in the prefrontal cortex versus what we call like the baby brain, or the brain that's like a fight or flight mechanism that makes us, we just can't even think. We just can't think. We're just in survival mode.
Right.
So I love those things that you did were real clear things that helped you get right in that place. So, okay. Well, so now we get to kind of turn the tables and you get to ask me a question. Any question? Since you know a little bit about me and you've listened to some episodes, what would you like to ask me?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I do when I'm not taking a desperation bath is I love to read. Reading is my main hobby. It's my main way of relaxing at the end of the day, kind of letting my brain untangle itself. What is either your favorite book of all time or the last book you read that you wanted to kind of was so great that you wanted to press it into someone else's hands?
Hmm. I think one of the very first leadership books I ever read, and it's still with me today, is like it's on my bookshelf. It's something I relook at, and it's John Maxwell's book on the Developing the Leader Within.
Okay.
And it's just so interesting because it ends up being like the previous book on the art of carrying leadership. It's the first chapter, and it ends up being like almost everything I talk about now is about like, how do we lead us? How do we make sure that and it wasn't purposeful. It wasn't like I even made a direct connect in my mind, but they say what you read today walks and talks with you tomorrow.
Yes.
And I feel that is so true. Like as that book kind of set me up to think about what is leadership really. And I think it has a lot to do with me. And I had a previous podcast guest and she talked about conquering us first. And isn't that so true? I mean, we just cannot show up for other people unless we conquer ourselves first. So John Maxwell's Developing the Leader Within was a big one for me, I think.
That's great. That is one. I've read a lot of business books, but I haven't read that one, but you can bet I'm going to be getting that one for sure. That's a great recommendation.
It was one of his like earlier on ones. He's done so many since then, but it was a great one for sure. So for those who are listening right now and they could be kind of at a crossroads, they could need just some extra motivation. They might just be looking for a couple good nuggets. What might be a couple pearls of wisdom you'd leave them with today as they go about their day?
Okay, so one of the number one question I find myself asking as a CEO all day long, and I ask it in my home life too. In fact, my kids always roll their eyes at this because they know that I'm going to ask it. It's what is the result that you're looking for? So if I have a meeting with a group of my staff and they're working on a particular project, the first thing I know I need to understand is what is the result that they're looking for from the project at large or from the piece of the project that we're there to talk about that day. And oftentimes, and we also talk about this when we're talking about sales with our venue clients, I'll say to my salespeople, when you reached out to that client, what was the result that you were looking for? And it's interesting that if they didn't know the answer to that, then they weren't ever going to get any sort of good result. And the same is true when we're doing project planning. The same is true when we're going into a conversation with our husband, maybe, and there's some conflict there, or if I'm trying to convince him of something, I need to ask, what's the result I'm looking for from this conversation or from this task that I'm doing? That question guides me all throughout the day.
That's a good one. Because even for myself, like, if we're listening right now, I mean, it could be outwardly for other people. And then that idea of internal, like, okay, I'm frustrated, or I'm going to go do this thing. And it's like, you may ask it another way and say, like, why? The very short way of saying is, what is the result you're looking for is why. But when you ask it the way you do, it's like, it makes you think twice about taking an action. So like, even in my list of cycle of active listening, as I think about the decoding phase where you're supposed to reflect and you're supposed to pause and you're supposed to maybe do research and talk to different people, if you, in your reflection in that decoding phase before you act upon someone's feedback, if you say like, what's the result they're looking for, or the same thing, what's the result I'm looking for, depending on what's what, it really does say, oh, yeah, the thing I was wanting was this, but I'm not sure that's the path to get there. And that's what I like about it. It's super reflective.
Right. There's a lot of times I'm amazed by how many times we will feel like we're moving in the right direction. But when we stop and ask that question, we're like, okay, wait, if that truly is the result, then maybe this other way is what we need to do. It's just, it's so useful all the time.
Oh, I love that. Hopefully you guys write that down. Hopefully you did. This has been really, really helpful conversation for me and helps us having my brain is kind of twirling. So I appreciate having you on here, Meredith. It's been a pleasure.
This is wonderful. I have loved talking with you today, Heather. It's been so great.
For those who are listening to, just please make sure you share this far and wide. We need to have more people listening to this, right? We would just don't share it with yourself or keep it for yourself. Make sure that other people are having it. And so, yeah, just I appreciate you listening in, everybody, to the Leadership with Heart podcast, and just have a great day. Be well.